Welcome to session 3, where we focus on the work of Herbert Spencer. Now, Spencer was born in 1820, and he died in 1903. Now, Spencer's work, we're going to follow the same pattern like we have discussed Auguste Comte. Indeed, all the founders, the structure for understanding them is the same. We look at the biography, and then we'll now look at basic ideas or concepts or his views, and maybe sum up his contributions to sociology. And on the biography, I invite you to read the slides very well, because I have also detailed the ideas over there about his background and all that. Now, Herbert Spencer, like Comte, was evolutionist. Now, let me say this, that all the founding fathers of sociology were evolutionists. Now, evolutionism is not about only evolution of human beings from the lower animals and all that. That's biological evolutionism. But in the context in which we are using it is social evolution. That is, societies, the belief that societies evolve from one stage to the other, and that is clear in the works of Auguste Comte. Now with Spencer, Spencer's ideas about evolutionism or social evolution are actually two. The first one is that societies evolve from being headless societies to headed societies to compound societies, doubly compound societies, and triple compound societies. Then the second idea in his evolutionary thought is that societies were once militant and they moved on to become industrial. Now, these ideas are very relevant, because if you take the first strand of the ideas in the evolutionary doctrine, that societies evolve from being headless societies to headed society, that expresses a certain idea that we learn from diversity of peoples and cultures. Now, in science, the view is not that we were created by God. We evolved. And so, at a certain stage in our life, our evolution, we came to the stage of where we became the Homo sapiens. The Homo sapiens, at that stage, is the structure that we form today. How we look today, that is the structure of the Homo sapiens. So the evolutionary process, there was a situation where the Homo sapiens emerged, and that's the present form that we take. So this is the view in science. And also the idea that Africa is the cradle of civilization, because the first universal grandmother of grandfather was an African. So we rather change forms and structure as a result of mutation, adaptation, and to different climates, different environment, and all that. So from scientific point of view, there's only one race. That's just the human race. It's one race. But we've all adapted and changed forms, color, skin, hair texture, and all that, in response to the environments in which we find ourselves. Now, which means that the first time we evolved and we wanted to live, make a living in the world, it means that we were not forming societies. So we were hunters and gatherers, because we didn't have technology and all that. So we just depended on what nature provides in the environment. So with primitive tools, we were hunting animals, we were gathering fruits and berries, mangoes, if you may, in the forest, and depending on. So life was very rudimentary. In such a situation, the societies that we even form, there will be no heads, no chiefs, because everybody was on the move. It was mobility. We didn't gather things, we didn't build a house, complex houses, so people did not stay anywhere. So Spencer was right by saying that the first rudimentary societies may not be having heads, because before you can be having head, it means you must have permanent settlement. So then those societies later evolve into compound societies, which means that now they began to stay in community. They had heads, because once you are living a sedentary life and you are staying in a geographical space, then people are gathering there, then there should be heads. So from that kind of society, he says we move to a double compound. It only shows, the double compound only shows the degree to which society becomes bigger and bigger. So double, triple, and modern societies. So this is his idea about evolution in one way. The other way to express his idea is also that society evolved from militant to industrial level. The militant societies were warring societies. It means that in previous times, societies were fighting each other. And I think this case is coming from his own experience in European context, where a lot of wars were fought. But as they moved into industrial society, his belief was that those industrial societies now will do away with war, become more peaceful and all that. So that is two ways of expressing his evolutionary idea. Now, another idea that we gain from Spencer is that society is like a living organism. Biology. You know, you are a living organism, I'm also a living organism. We all have parts, okay? We have our heads, our mouths, our nose, our legs, and all that. And then these parts are coordinated. They are all functioning. So they are interrelated, they are interdependent, they are coordinated in such a way that it gives us life. It gives us, we the biological organism, the ability to endure and to survive. Now this biological organism imagery is what Spencer wants to put on society. Now his idea is that society is also like a living organism. It has parts. The parts are interrelated, they are working, functioning, and all that. So in sociology, this idea that society can be equated to living organism has been dominant. Now, then the question is, which are the parts of society? Which are the parts? If we have the arm, the legs, and all that for the human being as a living organism, then where do we identify the parts? Now, the parts of society are the social institutions. So for any society to exist, there must be some basic social institutions. Because without those institutions, you are not going to have a functioning society. So sociologists have teased out those institutions, and they are the family, marriage and family, the political institution, the religious institution, the economy, and also the educational. Sometimes we add the health institution. And in these institutions exist human beings. They occupy statuses and they perform roles. So wherever you find yourself in life, wherever institution you find yourself, the status you occupy, the role you perform, these are the things that make society to tick. So for example, if you have an accident and maybe your leg is not the same, you see that the whole living organism, that is the whole you, will be disturbed. So you will not be able to function properly, or any part of your body. So in society also, the institutions I'm talking about, if there is any issue in those institutions, you see that the whole society cannot function. For example, if there is crisis, just recently we were talking about elections. Now that is within the political institution, those who want to govern us. If the process had ended in crisis, that's why we were preaching peace, peaceful election, just vote, go home and go and sleep and wait for the announcement from the electoral commissioner. But supposing there's crisis in the political institution, there's going to be like war. If there's war, there's destruction. So by the time you are aware, this harmonious Ghanaian society we are thinking about or we admire will break. So it makes sense to see society at certain levels as a living organism, so that what makes us to endure is the institutions performing their functions. The political institution, for example, is there for the maintenance of peace, order, and pursuing what? Collective goals. The economic institution is there to make sure our material needs are satisfied. The religious institution is there for morality, cultural acceptance of our norms and values and other, and for integrating us. So you see that through the institutions, we build a coherent society. But then the question is, the human beings will die or biological organisms will die. But does it mean society will also grow and die? Well, I leave that for you to discuss. Maybe we come to the conclusion that the analogy was not always a perfect one. But the idea that societies are structured into institutions, the institutions function for the survival and endurance of society makes sense. So in a way, Spencer gave us an idea that could lead us to say he was a structural functionalist. The structures of society are functioning for the survival and endurance of society. Now, another idea that Spencer had was that society was evolving from one stage to the other, but for him, society, as it evolved, it will lead to perfection. Science will open the doors for us to see things in new light and not be held captives by blind religion. And so for Spencer, societal evolution is towards progress, perfectibility, and all that. And that in society itself, there's competition. You know, Charles Darwin proposed the theory of survival of the fittest. Charles Darwin was a biologist. What he discovered on his trip to Latin America was to observe animals, plants, and all that, and realize that these plants and animals actually struggle among themselves to survive. So that the whole process of biological evolution is one of competition, whereby the weaker species were eliminated and the stronger ones survived. So, just for example, if you go to a jungle, the lion will prey on the antelope. What do you see? The survival of the fittest. Now, curiously, Spencer brought this idea also into sociology, that the whole process of evolution was one of competition, whereby in life, in society, it's about competition. If you don't stand the test of competition, you'll be weak. And in extreme cases, you will die away. So he came out with this idea that even society should not, even governments, states should not intervene in the working of the competitive nature of society. So he had this extreme view that government should not aid the weak. So for example, if you are born poor, that is your destiny. If we are going to school, they say we should pay school fees, for example, and then you are poor, you cannot pay. Those who are rich can pay. There's no need for government to say that they are rallying to the point your aid, so that we say, oh, let's give them school feeding program, special care, scholarship, and others, because the nature of society or the way society is structured to move on from one stage to the other is that of competition. So in a way, you see Spencer anti-poor, anti-handicapped people and all that. But according to him, the whole process is just to eliminate those who are weak, those who are not fit, and all that. So we are saying that Spencer has contributed to sociology in many ways. He talked about evolution of society from headless to compound to triple compound, those ideas. He also talked about society moving away from from militant to industrial. Then he also bequeathed us with this idea that society can be seen as a living organism. And so we learn that life is full of competition as well, so that those who are bright, they are better endowed, will always ride on the shoulders of the weak ones. And in a way, these ideas are still with us, even though people don't mention them. The idea that life is full of competition, the survival of the fittest, has been responsible for many, many wars Europeans fought. For example, you hear Hitler had wanted to conquer the whole of Europe and rule it. That is the survival of the fittest idea. Today, Americans want to dominate the world. They want every country to be subdued. That is the survival of the fittest. We were colonized because the survival of the fittest was that Europeans were fittest. They were superior. Therefore, they had to conquer other people. So we have this idea still in new forms. Even today, we say in Ghana, we are practicing market economy. The market economy is basically the survival of the fittest. Now we've seen the dangers of the market economy. It leaves many people poor, make people rich. So in order to reform the system, we see government try to provide some policies or programs to meet the poor. So the school feeding program, for example, can be seen as a government that is trying to be responsible, because if you run a market economy, you create poverty, some people are left behind and others. It's not good for the whole society. So reforms come in through many ways. Scholarship for the poor, brilliant and needy students, as we call it in Ghana and all that. So we can use Spencer's ideas to understand our society and even global events and all that. Thank you.